The writer of Proverbs says that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. This is Proverbs 15, verse 22. Now this is true. We do need to seek input from other people when we are making decisions, but just having a number of advisors isn't enough, is it? How do we know who to listen to, or how do we avoid our own biases when we're asking for advice? And how do we figure out what advice will truly lead us to a better place in the long run? Now, whether it's at home, among friends, or at work, seeking advice can help us to make better decisions and to achieve our goals, what we really want to do with our lives. But with so many people around us who seem to know just what they, and maybe everyone else, should do, and those who disagree with one another, just getting advice isn't enough. And from what we learned on Sunday, even getting good advice isn't enough. By the way, sometimes I think that those who sound the most certain about what everyone should do are trying to convince themselves even more than those around them. I'm not always convinced that they really know the answer, just that they want to surround themselves with people who agree with them. But I digress. Now, when King Solomon passes away and his son Rehoboam becomes king, some of the people come to him, accusing the current political establishment of being harsh and unfair, and they ask for a change in the way that the state relates to the people. Now, Rehoboam does some things really well. He doesn't jump right into problem-solving mode and try to come up with an answer right away. In fact, he asks for 3 days. And then he asks those around him for advice on how to handle the issue. The problem is he doesn't do a very good job at evaluating the helpfulness of the advice that's offered to him. He dismisses the advice that suggests he should do what the people ask and be a servant to the people, and he accepts the advice that plays on his own sense of inferiority and makes him feel special and powerful. He looks to advice which helps keep him self-centered instead of those which helps him move away from having himself as center. Now, when we are faced with a tough decision, taking some time to consider the outcomes and seeking counsel are good things to do, but the next step is to figure out which advice will lead you in the best direction in the long run. Now, to figure this out, you need to carefully sort through the advice, trying to figure out what the motivation is behind the advice, compare it to God's word, and ask whether it'll promote the greater good. Now, in Rehoboam's situation, the good advice would have required him to exercise patience, kindness, generosity, gentleness, and self-control. And these are 5 aspects of the fruit of the Spirit listed in Galatians 5, verse 22. Now, in contrast, the bad advice tempted Rehoboam to give in to his own envy, haughtiness, boastness, and ruthlessness, and to gratify his own ego. And these are 4 of the things that should not be done, according to Paul in Romans 1, verse 29 to 31. Good advice and godly advice often requires you to rethink some of your assumptions, to let go of some of your prejudices, and to grow spiritually, while bad advice often simply confirms the things you already think you know and increases your tendency to be self-centered and self-serving. So the next time you face a difficult decision and are faced with competing advice from those around you, think about which direction would require you to exercise the fruit of the Spirit, and then do that thing. Even if, or maybe especially if, it is the harder